People are afraid to be pried loose from their ignorance because they know their ignorance so well. They know it better than they know their body odors. And if you say, come on, give up your ignorance, they get into that terrible position, terrifying position which Shakespeare talks about at the end of the soliloquy, Hamlet's soliloquy. They'd rather bear the ills they have than fly to others that they know not of. Thus conscience doth make cowards of us all, so they are cowardly.
I think that to be able to absorb, integrate, update, and then grow is the very essence of evolution. I think this is basically what Maya is trying to elaborate on here, because when I think about even myself, this is one of the things I had to struggle with in my life at some point, and even until now to a certain degree, not so much as it used to be, of course, but then I think it is, if you look at it, it is quite understandable why people will want to hold on to that ignorance, because if you sit down in the quietness of your room or in discussion with yourself, you will very quickly realize how much deadwood you have, and then you could imagine how trying to let go of so much deadwood will reduce you to almost nothing, and then not many people are interested enough or willing or patient enough to actually do the rebuilding job, the job of rebuilding yourself from just about nothing. Because when it is certainly the case that when you are in the process of trying to teach yourself or to grow in the real world, to grow intellectually, to grow in all the beautiful perspectives there is in the world, in art, in every single thing that might interest you, you will very quickly realize that the sheer amount of things that you do not know is so overwhelming that it makes you look. It happens to me a lot of times when I listen to some things online or I read some things. I just realize how clueless I am. I realize so much that I need to learn about life, about the people, about money, about economy, about God, about a bunch of limitless topics. So it is understandable, at least from my own point of view, why people would not want to do that, because it is actually very painful to come to that realization and then accept it, and then be willing enough to strip yourself off of the deadwood, and then be willing enough and patient enough and interested enough to actually go into the world and begin to rebuild yourself. I think if you really look at it as well from the perspective of forest fires, you could very easily see how the rebuilding job is a lot easier and, quite frankly, a wiser option than you letting yourself to be mostly deadwood. Because in the forest fire, one of the main things that cause the forest fire is the accumulation of literal deadwood and dead leaves accumulating for so long that just a small spark, maybe from campfires or from even lightning strikes, could ignite a flame, and then it burns so hard, so wide, in large perimeters, at extremely high temperatures, that it actually burns up the topsoil. And enough of that, and you could actually have a desert. Of course, that's going to take a very long time for that to happen, but then you could easily rationalize it, a forest fire, into a desert if you want to. It could be abstract for the sake of this conversation, even though it is quite literally the case and has been documented so many times. So would you really want to be in such a position where you come across a perspective, you come across a form of thought, you come across people, you come across systems which quickly pulls the slats from underneath you, so swiftly that you come crashing, you come crumbling, you burst into flames and burn in such high temperatures that you actually literally sometimes disappear. You actually die. So you would rather be the kind of person who is willingly trying to evolve by willingly absorbing from the unknown, then integrating yourself with the things you have absorbed. Selectively, of course, because sometimes when you dabble in the unknown, you may actually swallow a bunch of things that are not needed, a lot of dangerous things. So it has to be under the assumption that the unknown is comprised of both the bad and the good. And then when you pay extremely careful attention, then you know how to separate them. And then how do you pay extremely careful attention? By learning from others who have done it before you, who are doing it at the moment around you. And then you could very easily find a path that you could follow. No one is perfect. You could, I would argue that you would never find any intellectual online or any wise person online, any motivational speaker online, any preacher online who says wise things or perfect things all the time. So that's another thing you will have to confront when you begin a journey of self-development and rebuilding from a point of self-realization of ignorance. You very quickly realize that every single person, no matter how high and mighty they have become, are also still in the process of rebuilding, because it will always be the case that the unknown will always have more than the known, because the unknown is the birthplace of everything that is known. So why not look at it from the perspective of an adventure instead of damning yourself by holding too strictly and being too stringent with the things you would receive and reject. So I think this is a very beautiful perspective elaborated on by Maya. Of course, it does have a finger wagging element to it, but that is actually a useful part of it, because sometimes people only receive instructions when it comes in form of a warning, because then now there is also, it gives a sense of impending danger. So you could see why it gives us a sense of emergency, and then when it becomes emergent, then people begin to move. So I don't find that to be any problem at all. So I think we could learn from this. This is a beautiful perspective. Let go of the deadwood, let go of the ignorance. There is a lot more in the unknown than there is in the known. It is not something to be afraid of. It is something to appreciate and to accept and to integrate yourself with.